Hello, everyone. This is the first recording for a series on how to write a paper for a class in philosophy. And I want to talk about the first challenge that typically comes up, namely how you find a topic that you are excited about, that you are genuinely interested in. And you may be surprised that that is actually somewhat difficult because initially it may seem like a good thing that you can choose your own topic. But once you actually have to come up with a topic, you realize that that is not easy. But then if you reflect upon it, you see that that makes a lot of sense because it is already part of the assignment. For any kind of research or inquiry to come up with good questions is already a part of the inquiry. So here's my first recommendation for the kind of topic you're looking for. It should be specific. Now, what does that mean? Sometimes when you take a class, you pick a class because you're kind of interested in the large questions that are being raised or addressed in that class. So you might think, well, I want to write a paper on a big picture question. But at the same time, a seminar paper is intended as an opportunity to practice a certain skill set. And that skill set for doing philosophy, thinking like a philosopher, writing like a philosopher, has a lot to do with thinking deeply about whatever the question might be. And if you pick a large scale question, you're simply not going to be able to do that. Moreover, you may realize that it really takes somehow practice to acquire the skills that eventually you may need in order to address these large scale questions. And sometimes it helps to think of a seminar paper simply as an opportunity for that kind of practice. But okay, now you think I have to find a specific topic. But how do I do that? Because that could seem to suggest that you somehow have to reread everything that was studied over the course of the semester, and that seems impossible. So it can seem like you're stuck. And here comes my second recommendation. In order to find the kind of topic that works well for a seminar paper, it can actually be helpful to take a step back, step away from your desk even, go for a walk or sit outdoors, whatever helps you take a step back and not immerse yourself into all of the readings again. Rather, ask yourself whether something stuck in your mind, whether you can remember a discussion in the classroom that really interested you, or whether there was something that you found yourself thinking about when you were walking home from class. That is the kind of starting point that tends to work. And to illustrate that a bit and to orient that kind of search for a specific topic, let me just mention 3 types of things that are frequently used as starting points in papers in philosophy, in seminar papers, but also in papers that are published in journals. One is that philosophers often use examples in order to illustrate and make plausible a theory that they defend. But when you read how someone spells out an example, it sometimes happens that you think, well, the example is really intriguing, but I don't share all of the intuitions that the author appeals to. That is an excellent starting point for a paper. So here's something that really interests you, but at the same time, you think something about it isn't entirely convincing. Here is another type of starting point for a paper. Suppose early on in the semester, something came up, an argument, a theory that then as you were reading more over the course of the semester on a given discussion, let's say on some topic where there's a lot of philosophical debate, this early argument didn't seem to get any uptake, but you thought it wasn't such a bad argument. It was actually quite interesting. So your instinct here would be that that argument was underrated. And that, again, is a great starting point. You can craft a paper topic around saying, here's an argument that is actually quite rich and promising, but it hasn't yet been applied to questions that it may bear on. And now comes the third type of starting point, and that is the most traditional and best known type of starting point, that you have an objection against an argument. And again, in that case, the thought would be that here was an argument that actually seemed intriguing to you, interesting, maybe even to some extent compelling, but not quite compelling. And that is a really good reason for going back to the argument and just thinking through it step by step and asking yourself, which step is it that doesn't convince you? And then to spell that out in your paper. Now, by way of conclusion, I want to flag something that is a common denominator of the three types of starting points for papers that I have mentioned. Namely, that you are not going in for wholesale dismissal. You are rereading an example, a theory, an argument with a view to what are the dimensions thereof that seem compelling, and what are the dimensions that don't seem convincing to you. And the point of that is that even if a theory as a whole does not convince you, there are bound to be some ideas, some steps in the argument that are interesting. And you want to learn about these ideas, even if you, on the whole, are going to disagree with someone's view.